Welcome to the Wildlife Wire. I'm Mark Searles,
And I'm Samantha Miller.
and this is your source for wildlife news and the people that make it. On today's episode, Sam and I took field trips into the wilderness. Justice may be served in Wyoming, and Scarlett Johansson scares wolves.
So Mark, what happened last week? Why didn't we record a podcast last week?
Hey, Sam. Well,
Hey,
as
Mark.
much as we love being desk jockeys, we were out doing things, weren't we?
We were doing stuff last week.
In
What?
nature.
We were in the wild, which is, it's always a thrill. Probably less safe for the wild than us, but we were definitely doing things last week. What were you doing, Mark? You want to tell our listeners you were doing something pretty cool?
Yeah, I had the most swell time and generous opportunity last week. And I got an invite from Colorado Parks and Wildlife to participate in their annual Bighorn sheep count on Pikes Peak,
Ooh.
just outside of Colorado Springs.
Counting sheep?
Just counting sheep, So we got to CPW headquarters at 4 a.m. And we had multiple groups, and we then stormed the mountain.
Ooh, stormed all together.
Yes. Well,
okay.
All together, and then we flanked. And
can you tell me what a storm? Tell the listener, what does a storm and a flank look like with
we
stormed. You and CPW?
We all left this from headquarters to the mountain.
Okay.
And then once we got to the mountain, some people stayed on the road to the top of Pikes Peak and glassed, which is when you're using your binoculars or spotting scope, looking across in a kind of a grid pattern for bighorns and anything else too that we saw that was interesting. And so some people stay on the road, some people went on, then the rest of us went on various trails. Mine was one of the more difficult ones, and it was really fun. We started above tree line, and we're above tree line for the majority of the morning, and all off trail as well. And so it was me and I think there was 5 CPW officers of various tenures and ranks. And then we ended up meeting. We started with another group that included one of the CPW commissioners on there as well. And then we split from them and proceeded to look for the bighorns. We saw 15 bighorns, but technically it was actually only 5. Because we saw
Can you explain why was 15 actually just 5?
Well, we saw the same group of 5 3 different times.
Were they counting you as you were counting them, or how did that happen?
Unfortunately, we were kind of pushing them from a very far distance. It's interesting too how the behavior from the ones that are closer to the road is from the ones that are farther out off trail. And so I observe this a lot with coyotes too, where, if it's an animal that's been habituated enough to realize most of these humans aren't going to cause any problems, then, they're pretty tame and don't flee. But, these ones that were farther off were fleeing from hundreds of yards away. And so glassing for them was pretty difficult because from 400 or 500 yards, they look like rocks if they're just laying there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So did get to see those. We saw some mule deer up above tree line as well. And then once we proceeded down the back of Pikes Peak onto some private land that CPW has a good relationship, we saw 2 moose as well. And they were saying that the moose have really moved in to that area. And
the moose are loose, huh?
Yeah, moose are really spreading rapidly
Huh.
in ecological time and even in human time uh,
Yes. Yeah,
around
and
the state of Colorado.
they're not originally from Colorado, are they?
They are not. They were brought here. The first introduction, not reintroduction, started in the 70s as a hunting opportunity, and then they have been moving them around, moosing them around uh, as their population grows. They've transplanted some throughout the state, and while while I always am a little frustrated with seeing a moose because I know that they never had an established breeding population, it's always really cool to see them. And I know you get to see them in your hometown.
I see them all the time. And I have also mixed feelings on moose because they were introduced just so we could hunt them. And they do cause way more fatalities and harm to human beings than any carnivore in the state. And yet we never talk about, what moose are
No,
up to. So, uh, so yeah, some frustrations there and kind of that dichotomy of looking at, okay, if we look at mountain lions and everyone talks about, oh, they're such a threat. Oh, they do all of this naughty stuff. Uh, but we brought moose back for hunters and no one talks about what a threat the moose are.
yeah,
But I digress.
yeah.
That's how we live our lives.
So the whole purpose of this count was to get a good idea of what the population is. They've been doing this count for I think a couple of decades now, and it's really important right now because the bighorns are starting to catch pneumonia, and in bighorns, pneumonia can take hold in two different ways. One is the entire herd, or the second, which is what's happening right now, is that it's taking hold in the lambs, and
Oh,
so uh, they typically won't die off during the summer. And so they will do another count this winter and see how much lamb mortality there's been from this summer count.
yeah.
And that pneumonia is from commingling with Sam,
I'm gonna guess. Let me guess. Domestic sheep.
domestic sheep. So these sheep, bighorn sheep that live on Pikes Peak don't spend all of their time on pikes and end up going down. And what some of the CPW folks were telling me is, on some of the bigger operations, they um, typically have better vaccinations and things and these professional herds of domesticated sheep, but they have a lot of hobby farms around there, and
Uh,
they are the ones that really tend to transmit disease to the bighorns, and so it's always a problem with sheep, not just in Colorado but throughout their region, and figuring out, okay, what can we do to mitigate this issue? And sometimes with BLM, or oftentimes it's with the Forest Service lands, they've even closed grazing allotments to protect the bighorns.
yeah.
So tricky situation. But at the end of the day, I was really thankful for the relationships that I had built to be able to be given this opportunity to do this unique outing. So that's my Bighorn wrap up. Were you with Bighorns? You weren't. What were you with? You
I
were with
I
something
could have been
interesting.
I could have been with Bighorn. I was actually um just north of Big Bend Ranch State Park and south of Marfa in Texas. That's right.
Yeah.
Ponying on up over to Texas, and
Or
I was
down.
on and brought my saddle and everything. And I was on a large scale ranch in Texas, and I was out there really to discuss mountain lions. And, thanks to, again, relationships we've developed in work, I was riding a horse around a 100,000 acre ranch and discussing mountain lions and coyotes and outad sheep and all sorts of incredible things on this ranch. And even though I was there to discuss mountain lions, which thankfully in Texas, they did actually pass a couple regulations recently on mountain lions. Those regulations are very basic, but exciting. Uh, 36-hour trap check times for mountain
Hmm.
lions. They used to have no trap check time at
Well, it's
all.
not. It doesn't. They don't experience
Pain. Yeah,
dynamic weather
right.
in
Sorry.
Texas.
No, no, it's totally fine. And then, so 36-hour trap check times. And then they also prohibited canned hunting. So you could no longer let a mountain lion go in a caged area and go shoot it for fun. So, two very bare minimum things that happened, but we're glad they happened. And it seems that Texas hunters might be interested in, doing some more things to better regulate how they hunt mountain lions so they can keep the populations healthy, albeit for hunting, but it's where we can find common ground. And so we did have a lot of discussions around mountain lions while I was there. But the cool thing that happened while I was there is that we ended up pivoting into a discussion about ghost wolves.
Ooh, what is a ghost wolf?
Ooh. They are not spooky, but they are, scientists call them Gulf Coast canids. They've been discovered off Galveston or in Galveston, Texas, and it's coyotes that have strong red wolf genetics. And so there's a lot of hope that these Gulf Coast canids could ultimately contribute to saving the genetics of red wolf populations. And we had our friend Will Harlan on here who talked a little bit about red wolves, and we'll have to bring him back to talk more about red wolves, but they're incredibly endangered and they're very isolated. And they have to do a lot of captive releases to supplement the genetics of red wolves right now. Working a lot with the Missouri Endangered Wolf Center to do that. But ghost wolves could provide an answer for genetic diversity. And while I was there and we were checking all of the camera traps, we were able to find some very interesting looking coyotes. And those coyotes had very
Were
long
they
legs.
slightly transparent?
Well, they were obviously floating above ground as ghost wolves do. Uh, but they were very cool. And we're now working with Princeton University to do scat analysis with these specific canids. And we'll be able to learn more about what they are and how they might contribute to genetic diversity in a really endangered wolf species. So, yes, I did also round up cows and I did go through the desert. I did see a Mojave rattlesnake.
Mm.
I saw javelinas, which are adorable little potatoes of pigs. And I saw outad sheep, which are technically exotics, that were brought to Texas for hunting. I don't know why we don't call moose exotics here. But they also, like bighorns, kind of blend in with the rocks of the landscape, and they're very cool looking sheep. They're kind of like shaggy bighorns to
Hmm.
see. So fascinating stuff. Lots of wild plant species, lots of butterflies, and great trips. So that's why we left our listeners because we decided to go on field trips last week.
Yeah, and I think it was well worth it, and I'm really excited to get down there. From judging from your experiences, we're doing a staff retreat down in that part of Texas in October, and so always been
Ooh.
excited to get down in that area and
Well,
see its beauty and hopefully see some wild animals.
you will love that. We are also talking about doing a program retreat down in that area
Hey,
in
there we go.
November. So look at us. We're all Texans now. So yeah, good stuff. We've got just two stories for everyone today. So we'll each share one of our news stories. I think they're both, one is light, one is dark. How should we start, Mark?
I don't know. Well, you had mentioned hope. Uh,
Yes.
and so I think I'll go ahead and go because
Okay.
this one, this wolf has been given a couple of different names, but there was the big ride that's been going on the past couple of years called Hogs for Hope,
Yeah.
which was uh, started after Cody Roberts brought the juvenile wolf to the bar in Wyoming, and after he had hit her with a snowmobile and then paraded her around and then killed her out behind his house. So Cody ended up getting a small fine for that.
Yeah, it
For
was
I
like
think
$250 or
yeah, and
something,
it was
wasn't it?
and it was just for like having wildlife. It had nothing to do with the terrible things that he had actually done to that wolf. But now in Sublette County, Wyoming, there's a grand jury, and so grand juries are not really something that happens a lot in Wyoming. It's like one every 10 years or so. It's a rare occurrence. And so it's a 12-person jury, and they're able to subpoena witnesses. And then if they can uh, immediately have charges brought if 9 out of the 12 agree to bring these charges. And they're looking at animal cruelty charges on this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
We never see that for wildlife because allegedly wildlife don't have the same feelings that other animals have.
right. And so in animal cruelty laws, specifically in Wyoming, carve out wildlife as being affected by these laws. And so, this obviously went uh, a step beyond, and he participated in more egregious acts than normal when dealing with a wild animal. And so, what's really there was a quote in here uh, from um, from the former Attorney General of Wyoming, and he goes into a lot about why grand juries are used. It's a secret thing so that they don't these folks aren't that are serving aren't going to receive hate in the town that they live in. And so he has a great quote. It says, "None of those people in that bar who watched him do all that BS that he did to that poor wolf are going to rat off this a-hole and then be a pariah in Sublette County for the rest of their life." I'm guessing that's probably why the prosecutor did this grand jury. So I liked this guy that, he former AG, and this made him mad enough to lose all decorum and just and just say what was on his mind. So I really
Oh
appreciated that.
gosh.
And so there should be a verdict, I think, in the next couple of weeks
Great.
on this, and I'm hoping for the best. I think that there's a really good shot at Cody Roberts uh, receiving more penalties, the felony charge, if they if 9 out of the 12 find him to be guilty of animal cruelty.
Good, good. He deserves that and more, that's for sure. And for our listeners that don't know, in Wyoming, we've talked about this before. It's the killing fields of Wyoming. There are a lot of egregious things that can happen to wild animals in Wyoming, but it is perfectly legal in the state of Wyoming to kill a wolf by running it over with a snowmobile. And some very disgusting human beings take joy in hunting wolves, as they call it, and I say that with air quotes, by chasing them down with snowmobiles in the winter and running them over. Cody went above and beyond in that particular activity by running the wolf over, uh, injuring her, then taping her mouth shut and parading her around. He did let his dogs attack her in the backyard of his home briefly before bringing her to a bar. The wolf seemed to be paralyzed in most of the pictures. There were people that took pictures of this incident, and then he ultimately killed her behind the bar that evening. And so, totally disgusting, and animal cruelty laws should apply to wildlife. And if there's ever a case for it, this is the case. So I hope he goes to jail for the rest of his life, and good riddance.
Yeah, yeah, or death penalty by snowmobile.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm on board with that. So here we here we are.
Here we are.
You
I am not one for capital punishment, but we're not, maybe not death, but wound him and then bring him
no.
to your local establishment.
Okay, I'm on board with all of that. Eye for an eye here. You want to talk about Scarlett Johansson? That can
Of
make everyone
course.
feel better.
Of course. I mean, we haven't talked about her on the podcast for a while.
You know, I'd like to make a quick pivot to a lot more lighthearted topic, but also wolf related, and it involves Scarlett Johansson. Are you
Go
ready?
on. Go on.
And Adam Driver, who is also a very attractive human being. So there's this movie, and I've watched it, and it's called A Marriage Story. It's all about this terrible divorce between a couple. Great movie. Really devastating. There's a lot of really powerful scenes in there, but there is a scene where both actors are yelling at each other at the top of their lungs and ultimately to say, "We wish you would die." And USDA, being the creative geniuses that they are, have been testing different sounds on scare devices with wolves to keep wolves away from livestock. And apparently, playing this particular scene from this movie of the couple fighting has proven incredibly effective at keeping wolves away from people. So USDA is out there doing the Lord's work and research, and we always encourage scare devices. They will play loud sounds. There's sounds that have lights, so lights will also go off with Scarlett Johansson yelling, and wolves just don't like either of those things. And I'm glad to see the USDA doing non-lethal research. I think we should applaud them when they do that. And this seems to be working. So go Scarlett and Adam. We are thankful for you. You're saving wolves through your excellence in acting. Thank you, actors.
Yeah, I had heard about this. I went to a Colorado Parks and Wildlife meeting specifically for ranchers back this winter. Um, and they brought up Oregon and using different methods on a loudspeaker, because when they fly these drones without any speakers, the wolves and the coyotes and everyone would just like do play bows and like run around, and it wasn't very effective.
Wasn't it Metallica that was working in Oregon or something?
Yeah, and so they had brought up like a couple arguing, and I was curious like where they were getting the audio for that. And so I like that they did this, and I think it is creative, and I think it does anything that we can do to you know do some more non-lethals that will move wolves away from an area instead of getting killed is a benefit.
It absolutely is a benefit. And I am excited to share that story with folks. And we'll be back with our regularly scheduled programming this week, right? We'll have an awesome interview.
Yep.
And then next week, we'll be back at it with our 2 normal episodes. So
yeah.
we're
And
really.
I just hope to, on the movie,
Okay, go ahead.
that I wish there was a way to relay a message that, hey, we like these actors. Like, I love the movie Ferrari that Adam Driver was in. Lost in Translation was one of my favorite movies that Scarlett Johansson was in. So I don't want them the wolves to feel like these are just awful people, that they are quite talented.
Yes, we'll give them the cinematic credit where credit is due, Mark. Okay. We will definitely do that. And we'll see everyone back for our interview this week.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been an episode of The Wildlife Wire with me, Mark Searles, and my co-host, Samantha Miller. Thank you for listening.